here, for those of us who've had an opportunity to see them during voluntary OTAs, we see a difference in them, right?
Right.
So we could tell you, like, if you want to bet 11-7, or you want to bet, 10-8, 10-7, and 11-6, you could do that because there are viable ways for the Falcons to get there, which probably, Jarvis, puts them in contention to be in the playoffs either as a wild card, but I really do think their best path is to win the NFC South.
Right.
However, there are still pundits that don't exactly agree with that. So there was an article that came out on NFL.com that talked about those teams that are most likely to end a long playoff drought in 2023. Now, I'll give you the number one ranking, and then we'll kind of go down from
Okay.
there. So number
Okay.
one would be the New York Jets, and I'm not going to, of course, go through all 26. Number two, Detroit Lions. Number three, Atlanta Falcons. So the rationale from this gentleman is that he likes the feel of Arthur Smith's team because of, well, Arthur Smith, offensive guru, workaholic. Some people dwell on the fact that they were 7-10, but hey, we know how they got to 7-10. But he actually starts talking, Jarvis, like we spoke even yesterday.
Yeah.
He starts looking at why they could be the number 3 team who could make it back to the playoffs because of the Bijan Robinson pick, because of Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Cordero Patterson. And then on the flip side, 4 of the veterans that they picked up in free agency: Calais Campbell, David Onyemata, Caden Ellis, and Jesse Bates. So you take those 4 on offense, right? And then you take those 4 on defense. And he says he thinks that this team, other than the Detroit Lions and the Jets, are arguably one of the teams that, hey, he thinks they can win 10 games. He thinks they can make the playoffs. Now, he thinks wild card, but what say you on all of it?
I'm leaning towards the division as well, and here's my main reason why is because I do trust Arthur Smith, because what he's been able to do to be able to win 7 games in back-to-back years in the first 2 seasons as the head coach of this team is, I feel like it's been a yeoman's work. Like he's been doing the Lord's work to be able to get squeezed 7 games out of these 2 rosters, because we know what they've been in from a salary cap standpoint.
Yeah.
They had to basically kind of suffer through it, you know what I'm saying, and say, hey, suck it up, Buttercup, with all this dead money, with Julio Jones contract, Matt Ryan, and all that stuff. They had to go through some tough times. So now that they have some money, they have more money to bring in better talent. And Arthur Smith with better talent in year 3, I feel like can be a competitor or be able to compete for the NFC South division, because that's at the end of the day, that's what you shoot for, because you never know how this thing can go when you're talking about wild cards. Like, and I never want to the Falcons to be the team to be in those conversations, because you just never, I don't want to do math equations towards the end of the year about how they're gonna get into the playoffs. I was like, okay, they got the number one in the division. Cool, let's roll with that. And I feel like the way these teams are constructed in this division, with the uncertainty at every quarterback position, and I throw Desmond Ridder in there, but like I said, I have a little bit more confidence than the national people do, like we talked about yesterday. But I'm in a space where I trust Arthur Smith with this offense and all of the young offensive weapons that they have, and I think people need to pay attention to what I just said. All of the young offensive weapons, all of the guys they have on rookie contracts, on the offensive side of the football. So that's why they were able to go out and pay $15-16 million to a safety. So those are some of the things you have to kind of pay attention to, and that's kind of where I am as far as this team getting into the playoffs via the NFC South division title.
Yeah, that was probably the only thing I disagreed with him on, because like I said, I could see 10-7 just as easily as I see 11-6.
Indeed.
But he was thinking wild card. And when you kind of look at the board of some of those teams that are probably going to be right there in the mix, like the Cowboys, because the Eagles to me are still in position to win the NFC East. But you got the Cowboys on their heels, you got the Giants on their heels. So you don't want to have to be, to your point, in week 18, sitting on the edge of your seat, waiting for somebody to lose, somebody to win, somebody to do this, that, and the third, just so you can get into the playoffs. No, you play your way into the playoffs. And I think they do have the guns to do it. And another one, I know you don't really talk about O-linemen very often because there's no stat that you can kind of connect to them. But like I said, he's the important piece, because as he goes and that entire line, especially that left side goes, that's what's really going to take the Falcons offense to the next level, because they've got all the run protection that they could ever want.
Right.
But if they can get that pass protection with all those weapons that you and I just mentioned, that's what to me is going to put them ahead of the game in the NFC South versus, say, those other teams that don't necessarily, like you said, they may have unproven quarterbacks just like the Falcons do, but they have, I feel, way more other positions where there are unproven talents there that won't be able to compete with the likes of who the Falcons have gotten in the offseason in free agency. Now, there was another article that I thought was interesting that went in the opposite direction, the direction that we're becoming increasingly familiar with.
Yes,
here. So,
par for the course.
Par for the course. So it wasn't anything that you and I were maybe shocked about. I think the bigger thing, Jarvis, for me was the shock about how low the position was. So this was an article on ESPN Plus that ranked NFL rosters for the 2023 season and kind of went through strengths and weaknesses, right? Mm-hmm. So, of course, the usual suspects, you'd expect the Chiefs to be 1. You'd expect the Eagles to be 2, and then Buffalo Bills 3, and they kind of go down the list. All of those you expect to be at the top of the fray.
Fair, yeah.
Right, exactly. That is fair based on playoffs last year and what they've done in free agency themselves. But here's where I'm troubled and confused, I should say, because we do still try to be objective.
Of course.
The Jets at 10. Let's start there. I'm going to give you some more. Keep laughing because, keep laughing. Seahawks at 12.
Okay. All right.
What was another shocker for me ahead of I'll give you one more. And we'll go with our final, and I know this one is going to bite your apple. The Saints at 19. But the Falcons at 26? I'm just trying to understand if you're talking about strengths and weaknesses. Tell me exactly in a sensical way how you got to 26, because Jarvis, I read and reread this and I'm like, okay, if the weakest unit is the quarterback, if that's all you got, you got to miss me with 26.
Yeah, like, so that's my thing, because, like, you know, looking up and down this thing, like, because look at a couple of teams that are the few teams that are in front of the Falcons. The Packers at 23, Commanders, who haven't won anything in forever. It's been forever since they won anything. Sam Howell, who's a 5th round pick, because we know Desmond Ridder catches a lot of flack. Oh, he's a 3rd round pick, so hey, true enough. If the talent level, you know, he was drafted where he was supposed to be, because hey, that's where he was drafted. You know what I mean? So people are kind of looking at him just saying, okay, it's a 3rd round pick. There's no way he can be able to be viable enough to be able to get the Falcons to where they need to be. But Sam Howell's a 5th round pick, right? And he wasn't even that good in college. Like, so,
and the Saints ahead of him too. And you know that's my home team. Not that I root for them. I'm a Steelers fan. You better understand. But I don't see anything in their roster as an example, or any moves that they've made in the offseason that, or even in the draft, that would say that they would be in a stronger position, especially because, wait, get this, Jarvis. They say the weakest unit is on the defensive side because defensive tackle David Onyemata, Shai Tuttle, and Kentavious Street are gone. Guess where Onyemata landed?
Right.
That math ain't mathing, Jarvis.
Come on, make it make sense.
Make it make sense, because it does not.
Yeah, this is what I like. Like, I love this season, right? Because, you know, it gives us something,
it's funny,
little
right?
pontificate on. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's fun and it's funny.
It's funny. It's fun and it's funny. That is the perfect way of putting it. So I think when you look at that, though, like, the Green Bay Packers, like, they weren't even that good with Aaron Rodgers last year, you know? So how is it that you got Jordan Love, who nobody knows how good he's going to be? Like, anybody who tells you they know for a fact with all their heart that Jordan Love is going to be an amazing replacement for another Hall of Famer, they lying. Like, there's no way you can sit up there and say that, because we haven't seen him play. So, and we actually got a chance to see Desmond Ridder play last year. So my whole thing is like, we got a chance to see a nice little sample size from game 1 to game 4. You saw the progression.
Yes.
And Arthur Smith, like the other article mentioned how they trust Arthur Smith. I trust Arthur Smith. You trust Arthur Smith. If he sit up here and saying, you know what, I saw enough to at least bring this guy in to be my QB1 for at least for 2023.
Yes.
Like, let's go with that. Like, you need to believe him. I believe
Right.
Arthur Smith when he talks about Desmond Ridder and him being the guy, for this season. So, yeah, miss me with all that stuff about the Packers and the Saints and the doggone Washington Commanders, who've been awful for years.
Yeah.
Years. Shout out to Daniel Snyder finally getting that amazing going away gift. But yeah, like, this is something that I really feel like that this is the part of the list season that I don't like, because it just seems like it's just the national narrative. Really don't know what's going on with the team. You kind of just do headlines and then like, oh yeah, the quarterback ain't good. Okay, let me drop them all the way at the bottom of the league. Because I'll put some money on that the Falcons will not be picking in the top 10 this year. Next year, I can put some money on that right now.
And that's an excellent point, because that's essentially what a 26th ranking equates to. That you're basically saying that they're going to pick in the top 10, darn near top 5. And you just can't tell me that this team that picked at number 8 this year is going to be somewhere hovering around there again. I'm just not believing it. And I want to go back real quick to your point about the sample size. People say that 4 games is a small sample size, but that's still about 25% of the season. And he was 2-2, and he lost a close one to New Orleans, right? And Baltimore, that was kind of a tough go, but his numbers got better. Ritter did. And then they beat Arizona, and he had his best game, arguably, against the Bucs. So my thing is quality and quantity. So yeah, you may not have gotten quantity in him, playing half the season, but you got quality out of those 4 games with quality competition that had quality defenses that they were putting on the field. So that's why we tend to think like, no, there's nothing but upside to what this roster looks like. But everydayers, tell us what you guys think. I mean, do you think that the Falcons are a team that one of the top teams to be in position to end a drought for the playoffs? Let us know. Also, if you guys think that they should be higher, at, or lower than 26 as far as team rankings and how you got better in the offseason and all that good stuff, let us know, because, hey, maybe we missed something. You know what to do, because you drop comments in the YouTube section all day, every day. Drop them here as well. We appreciate you guys for that. And, of course, we appreciate you for downloading us wherever you download your podcasts.